Well, let's go ahead and get started because I know we got a bunch of people on and getting started early is important. Um, so I just want to kind of set the stage for the conversation a little bit, introduce everybody. We have a bunch of people from the Matador side, a bunch of people from the Hona side here. So everyone on the Matador side, me, I'm Nick Cohen. I'm the COO over here at Matador. Know most of you all personally. We also have Bruce on, who's a senior co-op manager, and then super fortunate to have Matt McClellan over at Hona joining us today to talk a little bit about all things AI and automation. So maybe Matt, you could give us like a little background on Hona for those that don't know you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. Good to meet some of you, though we aren't actually technically meeting, but good to see your names on a list of names. Nick, once again, like he said, I'm Matt. I'm one of our co-founders here at Hona. We've been building Hona for a little over 4 years. Initial thesis of Hona was, wow, clients' expectations are so high of businesses they interact with. Therefore, oftentimes it's hard to meet those expectations as a law firm, especially when there's so many other competing priorities. And so we built a platform for managing client expectations, but beyond that, just delivering an amazing client experience. A lot of that's automation, and with how AI has been improving so quickly over the last 18 months, we're also starting to layer in a lot of really cool artificial intelligence things to not only deliver that great client experience, but also to alleviate a ton of administrative burden on legal staff and legal professionals. And so that's what Hona is all about. We want to be the interaction point in creating a great client experience and making legal professionals' jobs just a little bit easier, especially around communicating and keeping clients in the loop with what's going on.
That's great. And for those that don't know about Matador that are in on the Hona side, Matador is a marketing co-op that is half agency, half think tank, where we do all your SEO, all your website ads, that sort of stuff, and then share information on how to run a better law firm, which is why we have Hona on. All right. So one of the main problems, Matt, that we see is there's a lot of like noise around AI and automation, and a lot of it falls flat on implementation. And so one of the things that we regularly get asked is, well, what's the one thing I can do at each stage of the client journey to actually create and use this better experience, um, create a better experience? And that's what we want to talk about is go through every phase from intaking a lead through closing out a case and then getting that referral. Let's try to give people one thing where they can either use AI or automation to improve their practice. And the overall like theory that we have and that we've talked about is AI on its own is okay, and humans on their own are also, okay. But when you combine human and AI or human and automation, we start to get a 1 + 1 = 3 scenario, which the idea is it leads to more profitability, happier clients, fewer mistakes, and overall better client results. Um,
Can I touch on something there, Nick, real
yeah,
quick?
please,
Yeah, I
please.
think that I'd be the first to tell everyone that if you're not like adding in a personal touch to your client experience and client journey, you are drastically missing the mark. Like we all interact with businesses, call it Amazon, call it Domino's, that give us these updates and keep us apprised of the information we want to know. However, those aren't like life-changing events like a lot of people who hire law firms. And so
Yeah,
like we don't need a person to call us and tell us that our package is 10 steps away from the house. But in a legal dispute or in a claim or whatever practice area, immigration, family law, these are really personal matters that if there's no personal touch, you're missing the mark. And I know a lot of you who are in this group, really heavily lean into the personal touch, but it is exactly what you said, Nick. It's utilizing AI, utilizing technology with the right amount of personal touch. And if you don't have that right amount of personal touch, you also aren't meeting the client's expectations, mostly due to the fact that it's just such a heavy weighing process, on them. If you're in certain practice areas of law that don't have as much
yeah.
like emotional things going on, you can actually layer more technology in. But it's finding the right balance that you and your legal staff can keep up with and that like your clients actually need.
So can you define AI versus automation? Because I think for a lot of people it can get confusing.
Yeah, there's some fun blurred lines here. There's a lot of AI companies that say they're AI, and really in the background, it's a lot of automation. Um, but what's really cool is what we're starting to see is so from a definition standpoint, I think that bullet point says it pretty good. AI means there's some like critical thinking going on by non-humans, while automation just is something like, hey, a trigger was hit, therefore this automation is going to take place. And so, an example of this is, Hona, you can send out updates to clients from like phase changes within a case management system. For all the Hona people here in the group, that shouldn't be news to you. But for those that don't know about Hona, that's one of our kind of 4 years ago was kind of our initial offering. It's like, hey, let's just automatically update people when things happen in the case management system. What we're
Yeah.
starting to build and layer in is like AI being able to actually see like, oh, the client's logged in 4 times over the past 4 days to the Hona portal. There must be something going on. Let's elevate, escalate that to the legal staff and say, hey, this person's logged in 4 times. You guys should maybe go make a phone call. And like it can give like actual like intelligent recommendations of like, hey, this client is going through this or has been doing this over the last few days. Maybe you should give them a phone call, or here's a pre-scripted text message. So we're starting to build those things in, and that's artificial intelligence. That's when it's actually taking data and saying, here's the action we should take from it. And then you keep a human in the loop to do that. And eventually that can also be automated, a lot of that. But that's like, there's some stark differences there. And that's like real thinking versus just, a trigger was hit, therefore we're going to send a message.
Yeah. So is it fair to simplify that to say automation is a system and having a good system and is more system based and AI is more dynamic and thinking based?
Yeah, and I think some clarification there even is like without that system, AI can't actually do what AI does best, right? And so you kind of have to have both and layering in the right amount of automation and then AI kind of making you, you know, giving you the superpower of being able to do more with less time or do more with less people. That's where AI is becoming really amazing. But if you don't have that system in place, AI doesn't have the data it needs to be able to give you the insights and use its artificial intelligence.
Great. All right. Well, let's get out of 30,000 feet and sort of get into what people can be doing, like one actionable tip at every phase of the client journey. So we know right now, right, somebody finds your firm, whether it's through uh, Google, ChatGPT is growing, paid advertising, TV, billboards, referrals, whatever the source is, somebody hits your firm through one of these channels. This is like sort of the Matador piece of things. And then you have to get into the intake and evaluation piece of things. So you have to make sure that this person is the right fit. And if they are the right fit, you have to make sure that you get to them really quickly because today is very competitive. So maybe you could give like one AI thing and one automation thing that really helps people, improve both of these pieces.
Yeah, so I'd say that this probably isn't new to a lot of you. You're hearing of these AI receptionist products coming in. That's like a really real use case. I don't know if you've played with them or seen demos. You should go on our website and request a demo to at least see it, because it's pretty amazing that you can actually displace maybe an after hours phone call service in a lot of ways, and the AI can handle it in such a great way that it can actually help qualify. It can set up qualify like follow up based on how qualified the lead is. There's a lot of really cool stuff it can do that even like the best call centers maybe can't do. And yes, what's lacking is maybe that empathy and that real human on the phone. But from like a utility and like actual usefulness standpoint, it can be very useful as far as like a scenario would be. We have some smaller firms using it, and the partner's like, hey, if a hot lead comes in, I will take a phone call any hour of the night
Yeah.
for that big case that I've always wanted. So what they're doing is they're saying, hey, if it meets this criteria, forward it to my cell phone between the hours of 6 p.m. and midnight because they're happy to make that. And so we have real clients doing that because like if you don't have that human and really it's just going to be the AI receptionist being on the phone with them for 3 minutes to qualify it. And it's like, okay, this hits all the markers of being a hot lead. Now it's going to get to the partner's cell phone number to actually go close that case. And so once again, it's layering in AI in the right ways with the right human touch because you're not going to land massive opportunity potentially without that partner getting on the phone and be, the right intake person handling it. So that's an example of how AI is being used in intake. That same thing's happening through like text message conversation, web chat, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, but just an example.
Well,
Uh,
what's is it AI cheaper right now than human phone answering and human follow-up?
Yeah, so our base rate's like $2 a minute. And so like fairly competitive.
Yeah.
But what's cool is all the actions it can take, like forwarding the phone call to the partner when it meets certain criteria. If it meets certain criteria, scheduling it on the calendar for a consult the next day. Like there's some really cool stuff that it can do today that and then creating like this automation one is like the AI takes the phone call and then we have automations in place that it can shove it into the CRM. So
Yeah.
all the data, the transcript, all the information from that initial phone call can be automated to send like, call it lead docket, call it Lawmatics. It can create that contact in a CRM right after the phone call ends. So some really cool stuff if you utilize both together where there's AI and then there's automation. You don't need AI to go throw it into Lawmatics, but what you do need is, the conversation to have happened that then can push it over to a CRM or to case management for that matter.
Yeah. I mean, I think so. One of the things that we talk about a lot with firms is your follow-up process, right? So that's not just AI reception. It's like, the firms that are growing really quickly are really honest with themselves about when they lose a case or when they had one that they missed. And we sort of go through those numbers together every month, and we can sort of tease out what the follow-up process was. Did you call, text, and email 2 times for that case? And that has to go more to the automation side on intake, which is even if it's a human operating this system, having some sort of automated system will have a lot of value. Whether that's through Hona or through a different follow-up platform, I think there's, AIs can do a lot of that, but ultimately with having that human and automation, it will get you a long way.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Can you talk a little more about like, okay, so we know it's a case we want, um, whether you're validating with AI and then what the digital signing process looks like when you have something that's really automated and streamlined, like what that journey is from the, client side.
Yeah, yeah. So we're beta testing right now with some clients doing a full AI where the AI says there's now an e-signature, there's now a request to sign our fee agreement in your text messages. Like we are building that and we're testing it. I will say the very best firms that are utilizing a lot of this technology on the intake and evaluation standpoint, they just have a system. Once again, back to systems. They have a system in place that like when a hot lead comes in, the right person is alerted that there's currently a hot lead on the phone with the AI, or there's currently someone who just submitted went through their intaker on their website.
Hmm.
And like having those systems in place are crucial for that speed to lead, and getting that e-signature out or getting whatever is necessary out following up. But I'll say in the next 18 months, there will be AI doing complete intakes. Like it's inevitable. Like that's what we're up against, and you're going to be up against in your market. Yes, layering in the right human touch is going to make you more appealing to sign with than other firms that are only using AI. But at the end of the day, there are a lot of people that are going to get on the phone. They've heard of this firm before. They see their billboards, and they're going to sign up with an AI just because it's so convenient to do so.
So would it be fair to say that if the bigger firms are going that direction, the smaller firms can compete by having a human component in front or behind of all of this AI?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in the situations where someone calls two firms, I mean, if you just put our consumer hat on, if I'm
Yeah,
hiring a law firm and I call two law firms and one's all AI and one's a human, I'm likely going with the human unless there's some other variable in play.
unless they don't pick up,
But
then
that's the issue is
yeah.
like how many people sign clients when you were the first firm they reached out to? Like that's the same things happening with your competitors. And so we need to be honest with ourselves that if you don't have some of that convenience technology on the front end, and that's where the systems come into place. Like maybe you have a call center or you have like some intake staff that's staffed till 6 p.m., 7 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Yeah.
Great. Let's let AI do the initial qualification of those people. And within 2, 3 minutes, let's have it forward to your intake team or to somebody's cell phone at night or whatever it may be. Maybe it's that
Yeah.
call center that you use that the AI forwards it to a call center that's like a really high end call center. There's so many ways to build these processes. But I think hopefully I'm just painting the picture of like where the market's heading and where the technology is already capable. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. And then Christian actually asked us a question, is AI, which I don't know the answer to, is the AI able to take a payment over the phone and guarantee the safety of the information?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's something where we just actually pushed out a LawPay integration where Hona and the AI can initiate building a quote an invoice out, therefore could then send the link to have payment taken. We have also tested like capturing of credit card numbers, but there's some weirdness around that right now from a regulatory standpoint
Yeah.
of AI taking like sensitive information over the phone. And so we're kind of pushing that one down the road a little bit. But from like hey, we can go send out an invoice link to go pay like a consultation fee. Absolutely. Like that's coming really soon in our platform. And I know other platforms have some of that functionality already.
So a little risky right now, regulatory wise, over the phone, but AI is now smart enough, because not everybody has a free consultation, right? You guys aren't only PI. Matador is about, 40% contingency firms. And so a lot of our firms are having other, consultation fees and that sort of stuff. And you guys, or AI is in a place now where it can automatically push that, follow up, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Um, so this is, I want to like, I think one of the things just to prime this question is we talk to law firms all the time who will sign a case from somebody and the client was already with a very large law firm and they weren't getting that client communication that they wanted. And so what happens is the client signs up with a, super big law firm, gets frustrated with the client experience and then goes and finds someone else on Google, calls the local firm. And I would say I have this conversation like once a month across different law firms. And what it comes down to is, good communication with a client generally creates a good experience unless the client's like, I don't want to talk to you. So, and I know this is like the roots of Hona. So, maybe you could just talk about that and the role of AI and automation and, in this experience to actually have, there's so many bad experiences that people have with law firms. And I just, I think it's a big piece of the equation in building a successful firm. So maybe you could talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So this kind of goes back to something I alluded to a little bit earlier, like expectations of your clients are what we're up against. And if you think about it, your clients aren't comparing you to other law firms that they've worked with in most cases,
Yeah.
depending on your practice area, depending on what you do. But like in most cases, they have not worked with another firm that does what you do. You were able to convince them, or the right referral came in and they chose to go with your firm. But throughout the client journey, they're not looking at other firms to compare you to. They're looking at other businesses that they interact with.
Mhm.
Therefore, that's why their expectations are so high. And so good communication, good expectation setting, which I know a lot of us like lean into that on the intake side. Um, you'll set expectations of like, hey, what's important now? In a personal injury example, what's important now is that you go take care of yourself medically, you listen to what the doctor needs you to do, you attend your appointments, you let us know if anything's changed. These are your to-dos right now. It's
Mhm.
like, that's great. We're really good up front. I think it's setting those expectations. But what happens is 3 months down the road, they've been going to the chiropractor, they've been going to the physical therapist, they've been doing all this stuff, and they, of course, forget that conversation they had and they get anxious and they wonder, when is this going to be over? How long is this going to take? And so setting expectations is important, but also meeting expectations and keeping really consistent communication. For example, there's a lot of systems that can do this. Shameless plug for us. We have a lot of this up, but like those main case update milestones are super important. But then there's also like the dead periods during treatment of like, hey, you're in treatment. Here's all the things you need to do. But you can set up these drip notifications where it's like, hey, 14 days into being in treatment, let's send another text that says this. And then once it's been 21 days, why don't we send something that does this? Like building out those cadences, day 28, we need to have, every third within it on the day 28 of being in treatment, our case manager is going to actually physically call them. Like having these cadences and structures set up, these systems, um, That's what delivers a really good experience. They shouldn't be thinking, when are they going to contact me next? No, they should know you're going to contact them on a weekly basis throughout treatment, and that
Yeah.
your goal is to call them once a month during treatment. That sets up that expectation and also helps them understand like this is what our communication cadence looks like. Therefore, the better experience comes out of it.
How much of that can be kind of AI or systems, and how much of that should be like, I'm texting you through Hona or I'm texting you through another platform. Um,
Mhm.
have you like, just in your experiences, you guys work with a lot of firms. What's that been like?
Yeah, I think that majority of the text messaging, unless some other variable pops up, like majority of the text messaging can all be automation, at least in our platform today, where it's like, hey, day 14, send this, day 21, send this. Once they get to demand, day 7, after they're done treating, day 7, we want to send this message. Like all that automation is really good. And you can actually, like our templates are drafted in a way that you're not trying to trick the client into thinking it's a human typing it, but also like some of the automations, they are going to appear like it might have been a one-off, message sent from their case manager, and they can respond to it, right? That's also important, is having a way for them to respond if they need to. And so a lot of it can be automation, a lot of it can be AI, but like I said, I think the best firms today are doing a lot of phone calls still. Like there's still time to be spent on the phone to talk to the client about how their treatment's going and to ensure there's no gaps in treatment.
Yeah.
And so just layering in the right system, building those. I have strong opinions of what that should look like for a lot of different practice areas of law. We've built a lot of those strong opinions into our platform. But at the end of the day, some of that is you working with your legal staff to A, do what's possible, but also B, try to meet those client expectations. And every practice area has slightly different expectations because there's different client journeys associated with the different practice areas.
Yeah, different case lengths, different levels of stress, at times. Although,
Totally.
and so you have to, and you also have to battle against, you know, you don't always want your client to call you every day, and so you have to set those expectations at the outset. And I think, I think that can be challenging.
Exactly. Exactly.
All right, so Bruce, you say this the best, but we have a strong belief at Matador that like one client is really equal to three clients. And maybe you could talk a little bit about that briefly and how to use AI to get more reviews, if you even should be using AI. We could just spend a couple minutes on this. Hold on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Nick. So there's a bunch of Matador folks here at the webinar that are part of the coaching program. So I'm going to sound like a broken record to some people, but like Nick said, reviews are so important. It's something that we talk about so much at Matador. And really the first area that I like to start is that every closed case and happy client should result in a positive review. Reviews aren't just a byproduct of good work. They should be part of the end result in mind. That review is going to lead to your next client, and most importantly, more clients down the road. It's part of that 1 + 1 = 3 theme that we just keep touching on in this webinar, where everything ties in. And positive and detailed reviews have that compounding effect from your on-site conversion to your presence on Google Maps. There's multiple different angles here. So training your team to have positive reviews in mind throughout this every step of the client journey is critical. It's an ongoing conversation that you need to use data to inform. From, the intake process when you're listening to calls to the actual outtake process and those, post-resolution contacts. So one of the biggest questions is how do you get those positive reviews? And the short answer that no one really likes is get comfortable asking. Just like getting in front of the camera, the more you do it, the easier it becomes and the better you get at it. And after this webinar, we'll go ahead and share some resources that we've worked on with Hona on how to generate 5-star reviews. The personal touch is really important, and our methods are based on co-op data. They synergize well with AI, and that post-resolution contact process is really essential here. So with that in mind, I'm pitch it back over to Matt to chat a little bit about how AI can tie in there. But that's the quick bit on reviews are essential. We got to push on them.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really helpful context, Bruce. It's like I'm the first one to say that the very best like Google review harnessing systems that I've seen firms use are very heavily layered in with the personal touch, right? Like that's like an actual on the phone, you're on the phone with a happy client telling them that, you're done with their trust or that, their immigration paperwork is progressing. That's the time to ask, right? And being comfortable with it is a big piece of that. I think something that I'm starting to see a lot more, there's this not concept, there's these surveys called Net Promoter Score surveys that a lot of firms are starting to use to like get an understanding not only of like the end result of how happy a client is, but like temperature checks throughout the client journey. And I think these are really great ways to understand how happy as a client is. If they're leaving a 1 out of 10 net promoter score, and these are those surveys that are like, how likely are you to refer us to a friend or colleague on a scale of 1 to 10? Like we've
Yeah.
all answered those surveys. And so if somebody answers 1, well, what's your system for that? Your probably best system is case manager or attorney needs to call that person right away and get ahead of really bad review potentially in the future. So they're giving you these temperature checks so you're not shocked by a 1-star review at the end of the case but what you're doing is you're able to get ahead of poor experiences. And then for people that are leaving 8, 9s, 10s out of 10, those are your hot list of people that'll give you a review anytime. And so you layer in the system of like, hey, let's call people who in the last week have given us a 10 out of 10. Great. Those are pretty good odds you're going to have a 5-star Google review if you just go ask for it. And so building a system around it, utilizing AI to potentially like layer in those NPS reports. Like our system, you can say, hey, at stage 1, 3, 5, and 7, let's ask them on a scale of 1 to 10 how happy they are. And then you could funnel that through AI and say, hey, who of these people are most likely to give us a 5-star review? Boom, now you have your hot list of most likely 5-star reviews. Who of these people, based on the feedback they gave us, should I make a phone call to today? Like that's where you can start utilizing AI to like use some of the data you're harnessing from client experience.
So I'm on like the totally opposite side of you guys on this. And I think that review generation, people have been trying to like automate for a decade, and it's one of the hardest things to do because you're in such a I think any system feels like a system at some level if you're pushing it out with like, merge tags. And if you like, there's a couple people in here like, Tom Benerati, Greg, you guys are incredible at reviews. And I think Greg Rada, and I think that, the difference with the firms right now that are, really good with reviews is it's so hyper personalized. And I think, my opinion on it is like you need a system internally, but it should be the last thing to go because you have to make it personal. It has to go from whether it was whether the relationship was with the intake person who the client really loved or the paralegal or the attorney. You have to be making smart decisions. And unless you're trying to go, let's say you're trying to add 5 to 7 reviews a month, like that's a small, or it's a small enough number to where you don't need to be layering in all this technology. You can have internal systems. If you're trying to do 100 reviews a month and you don't have the staff to do it, then I think it's a good place to have a conversation about technology. But, my view on it, and, I'd love to have it, if I have any further dialogue here, is like, keep this super personal. Send your text messages out. I think and have the personal most personal touch possible with that.
Yeah, no, I think you're totally right. Like our most successful firms getting Google reviews on through our platform are using just our texting platform to send
Yeah.
the text messages, and that's about it. Other than that,
Yeah.
they're using like the NPS scores and they're using
Yeah.
some of the data that our platform can capture to like get ahead of bad reviews and also um, maybe highlight people who are in a really good spot to leave a review. But like we also as a baseline have like this automation that when it
Yeah.
reaches this stage of a case, send out a generic text that says it. That's better than nothing. Though to your point, I actually fully agree with you. Is like, no, no, no. There should be some personal touch in there. If the attorney sends them a text, and you can use templates for texting that out. You don't have to re-script a text every single time. But like, if they feel like it's a little bit more personal, they're more likely to go give that personal review
Yeah.
on your.
Or hey, like if they talk to you about their cat, how's your cat? Or you told me you were going to take a trip, or you're going to go to the beach. Like how, have something personalized. That can be just so valuable.
Oh, Nick,
And
something I'm
yeah,
super stoked about
yeah,
that. For those who aren't familiar, we're seeing it more and more lately, but there's this new type of text messaging called RCS, Rich Something System. And RCS is basically now like marrying iPhone to Androids, and it allows you to get read receipts from Androids if
Wow.
you're an iPhone user. Like this technology is coming out really quickly. We're working on converting I mean, the cell phone carriers are the ones that are actually kind of slowing it down. But like through that, you can send voice memos to people over texting platforms like ours. Through that, you can
Wow.
do some really cool stuff. And so like that's something that I know some people will do is they'll have like a office iPhone that they'll send voice memos to their clients, like saying like, "Hey, just wanted to reach out. Thank you for the phone call we had yesterday. Would love if you could give us a Google review." That's so much more personalized than an email or a text, right? And so layering in some of that is also really cool, where it's like a lot more personal than a standard text or email, but it's not taking the same amount of time as like a phone call with somebody because we just don't have time, frankly, to be on the phone all the time with all of our clients.
Exactly. And then the last piece of the client journey. So we, go through the whole case, the case is over, and then we go to the most forgotten group of people, which are your past clients. And, you know, I'm an internet guy, so I think that everything is always going to come from the internet. But, I'm smart enough to know that your past clients are probably and referrals are probably actually your best source of high value clients in many cases. Um, and what we see a lot of times in speaking with firms is the firms that have, super deep community roots spend the time to, um, track their existing client referrals. Like Tom, I'm going to use you again. I see you in there as an example. Like when you send us your report every month, we see all the existing client referrals that you're getting. And I think it's a forgotten place that represents a lot of opportunity for firms who just want to invest. Maybe it's, hey, I'm just going to put 2 hours a month, every month into existing clients, right? Or past clients. Can you talk a little bit about whether it's you guys or what AI and automation can do to at least keep you top of mind here?
Yeah, so I think the downfall on why a lot of firms aren't able to do this is because there's not always the right way to get your entire client list into a texting platform. Like maybe there's not an integration with your case management or CRM or whatever it looks like, or your CRM doesn't have that capability.
Yeah.
But a couple things that we do, but I know a lot of other companies do, is like birthday and thank you messages. For instance, our system sees what their birthday is in the case management system, has all their contact information, and then you can just flip a switch and say, hey, in the situation where someone is not deceased, let us send them a birthday message every time it reaches their birthday, and here's the message.
Hmm.
We have firms doing that and just doing a static generic YouTube video of the partner saying happy birthday, and it sends the link with the video to YouTube. Super
Yeah.
cool. It's like a little more personalized than just a standard text. Like I probably get 5 to 10 texts from different businesses I've worked with every time it's my birthday. Um, if I was to get a video, it's a little bit more thoughtful, I think, than the standard that I get. So firms are doing it that way. Firm updates and like community events. If you want to like send out a mass text, I know a lot of like um, we have a client that does a large volume of like fire cases.
Yeah.
And so they do a lot of community events, and that's a big part of their brand and a big piece of why someone who would hire them as a law firm for when a fire happens. And so they send out these updates about community events they're holding, or like they actually do like an annual party for all their clients, and it's actually a pretty big
Wow.
event that they throw, and they use us as the engine to get the word out about it and get RSVPs and stuff like that. Then there's like updates. If you're an immigration firm and you want to send out updates about the law or changes to people all at once, like you got to have some engine to be sending those text messages. Like keeping top of mind for when another legal something else happens in their life, that's what we want to be. And we
Yeah.
want clients to see you as that source of help. And if you're not sending at least some level of like post case communications, then you just might not be the first thing they think of when a friend of theirs is in an accident or when a friend of theirs is needing some legal representation. And then, of course, holidays. A lot of people seem to do like some snail mail on holidays. Snail mail is still a viable option. We're not getting as much snail mail as we used to. So,
Yep.
like, you send a little holiday package, it actually goes a longer way than you think.
And then you
Um,
can use Hona or a tool to follow up and say, did you get it? Hope you love it. Um,
Totally. Totally. So lots of cool ways. Once again, like hopefully the theme of all this feels like okay, there's platforms to do a lot of this, but at the end of the day, there's just some nice, not nice to do's. There's some like necessities to create this really great client experience that even if you're not using a Hona or not using something else like us, like make sure you're layering some of it in because it's going to be a great uplift for your clients.
Yeah, I think there's, really easy ways for people to start taking one actionable step. You don't have to go overnight. For everybody listening, you don't have to, there was a study that came out that MIT did, and it said that basically 90, I may be misquoting it, but 95% of enterprise AI agents at Fortune 500 companies were a failure, because we're so early in the process. But there are things that you can be doing now, like we talked about, whether it's emailing your CRM, having some level of automation, at least use a texting platform to save 10 minutes when you have, per review, or have somebody else be able to go into the texting platform. Or making sure you're not missing the phone calls and looking at AI answering. There are small things you can be doing to, at a minimum, make yourself, the best law firm in your area for what you do. And at a maximum, do that, plus be more profitable, plus provide, a 10 out of 10 experience. And I don't think you have to have this idea of like, flipping overnight. And so with that, I wanted to, keep it brief today. I do know we got a couple of emails beforehand about some questions that, we had people ask us. If anyone wants to pop anything in the Q&A, we're welcome to. Greg Rada, I do see your hand up. Happy to, have you speak or pop it in the Q&A, or, I don't know if it was just hanging out up there. But yeah, feel free to pop some questions in, or Bruce, if you want to ask the ones that we got, I'm happy to go from there.
Yeah, while we wait on the Q&A, one question that came through before this webinar that I get pretty frequently really relates to, what are the all-in-one AI solutions? There's a lot of solutions out there that are purpose-built for PI firms, like medical chronology analysis and that kind of thing. But we get the question, is there one all-in-one solution that can work for any plaintiff's firm?
I think there's a bunch. I'd have to, have the list pulled. I don't have it in front of me, but there's a bunch that can do a lot. I don't know if there's any one that can do everything, but I think it's the, probably wrong idea to think that you need one that can do everything. I think the right way to approach this is to have, write all your departments out. So whether you're talking, write all your departments out and have everybody in that department, do one, identify one thing that is most impactful, run a cost analysis on it, and then see what, makes sense for you to do. I don't think it's the right thought process necessarily to just say, I want an all-in-one tool.
Yeah, I think that's like a misnomer of like, oh, we got to find the one that's the best at everything. And that's my hot take is like, if you look at other industries, I was talking to someone yesterday who runs a really big Salesforce consulting firm, and Salesforce being like the CRM Salesforce. And he told me that the average Salesforce company that uses Salesforce has 37 integrations connected to their Salesforce. And then he said what Salesforce did amazingly was they had this central hub of data and information, and then they've built this ecosystem of amazing point solutions. So all those 37 integrations are amazing point solutions that can plug into this system, right? And so I think like there are a lot of companies here in the legal space right now that are trying to be the one size fits all. And I think in theory that sounds great. But at the end of the day, like if you just think of some of the AI companies that are getting large rounds of funding right now and building aggressively, like EvenUp, Supio, Eve, Finch, like these companies, I think are really good at a lot of things, but like Eve's going to be better at one thing than EvenUp's going to be, and Supio is going to be better at a slightly different thing. And like you got to your point, Nick, you got to find what are we actually trying to solve? Who's the best at solving that? And maybe just get away slightly from the I need a one size fits all. Because I think in the future, I don't know if that's how the future of legal AI is going to work. You're going to find point solutions that are better at drafting contracts. You're going to find out that, the demand process is best with this one vendor. So that's kind of my hot take, is I think some people are trying to tackle everything, and, it's hard to eat an elephant. all in
Yeah.
one button.
Yeah.
All right, I got another question that's come in before. Um, we've talked a lot about the client experience and how you get to that positive Google review. But, Matt touched on the fact that you can sometimes pick up on indicators that that Google review might not be positive coming down the road, might be out of your control. So when that negative review comes in, what do you do about it? How do you respond to it?
So yeah, this is unrelated and no AI or automation can do this. The first thing you want to do is you want to call that client and say who left you the review if you can and understand why and see if they'll take it down. I had never actually thought of this until about, the party line is remember that this, how you respond to this review is more important than the review itself because it's an opportunity to showcase your professionalism. And about 3 weeks ago, I got a call from a co-op member who got his first bad review after 174 reviews. And he goes, and I give him, everything that you're supposed to do, respond to the review, report the review, all that. And he goes, I'm just going to call him and see what the experience was. And he ended up calling the guy and they, figured it out and the guy took the review down. And I never had actually thought to do that. So it was, that's part of the new sort of playbook that we give to people.
That's really cool. I think I've I used to be when I was maybe a little younger in my career, I'd hear feedback that maybe was negative representation of me or my company.
Yeah.
Uh, and I'd quickly get defensive and be like, oh, well, that client's crazy. That's a pretty typical one. Like, oh, that person's crazy. They're impossible to please, which is sometimes true. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But also, like, I now just think, well, that's their perception. And their perception is reality, unfortunately, in their shoes, right? And so, like, we do need to take a hard look in the mirror sometimes and be like, oh, that's their perception. We should take that and actually improve because of it,
Yeah.
rather than just writing it off and saying that person's crazy. And so that's been a tough thing for me over the last 2 years is like being like every time I hear negative feedback about me or someone else, it's like, hey, what's caused this perception? What could be improved to have got ahead of this bad perception? But
Yeah.
like just taking a cold hard look in the mirror sometimes is actually I think what we should be doing in those situations as well. And then calling and rectifying it if you can. Like that's definitely right because that's how you actually get the most context of why their perception is that way.
Yeah. Um, and Bruce, I know, oh, somebody said, I think that when you trust your process, the best way to address bad reviews is talk directly with the client as it might have been misunderstanding or fixable error in the process. Very true. I have an anonymous attendee who said it. I can't see the name, but that's a great input. Bruce, before we let people jump, was there one more that we had? I know we got a couple in from people.
Yeah, final one is just sort of a classic question that we get pretty frequently that I figured I'd throw in here. Still on the review front, how valuable is a Google review?
We say it's worth $500. I think it's, maybe even worth more now.
Yeah, it's important to keep in mind. Uh,
Um,
that's everything as far as questions have come in before. Any other questions on the Q&A side?
got one that, oh, nope. Looks like we're all good now. Guys, thank you so much for jumping on. We'll send out some information. I know Hona is offering a discount for Matador Co-op members. Anyone in here that's not a Matador Co-op member, you'll have my personal email directly. I hope it was at least a little bit valuable. Where you need more information, let us know. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, y'all.